Hi there everyone, and welcome to another Facebook Live for this week. So tonight I'm going to be sharing with you the June free class. So in order to qualify for a free class, it's quite simple. All you need to do is place an order of $75 or more during the month, and you automatically qualify for the free class for the following month. So for example, if you place an order of $75 or more during June, you'll get the July free class. So what will happen with this, you don't have to do anything special. When you've placed your order, I will be preparing and sending out the kits in very early July with all the details about the class. Each month there is a 2-card free class. You don't have to purchase any extra product or anything special. Use what you've got at home, which is one thing I really love about making these classes. So that is a very quick reminder how to earn the free class. On Tuesday, I did talk a little bit about the Your Stash, Your Style weekly card class. I'm going to share another post in the morning with a link to all the information for this particular class. This is a class where you shop your stash before you buy any new products. So again, it is a class that you use what you've already got at home. So this is a private class. It'll be run from a private Facebook group, and only those registered for the class will have access. There's lifelong access to the videos that I'll be sharing in that class. So I did talk about it a fair bit on Tuesday, so I'm not going to go into too many more details right now about this class. So there's still time to register. Okay, so the free class, let me share with you the designer series paper that's going to be the focal point for tonight's class. So this is called Artisan Sketched Garden, which are these papers here in the black and white. These are really fun to use and very versatile. So they have some nice patterns on the reverse side, but they've also got some great floral images that you can colour. Let me show you these papers in full size. So as I mentioned, lots of colouring potential. If you enjoy colouring, these papers are what you're going to want to use. So one side is more of a line art. The reverse side, again, you can colour this one because you've got your black, your solid black, plus you've got all your white space. So here we go with some of these amazing patterns and floral designs. I think this one with the different vases is probably my favourite. And the 6th page, so there's 2 sheets of 6 different double-sided designer series paper. This one, I've almost used all of it. Let me flip it over and share the reverse side. So as you can see, again, some clusters of the flowers that are really fun to use and colour. So the reverse side is a little bit more friendly and versatile with the pattern. Again, another floral pattern. That black background with the white showing through. And again, some more paper that you can cut out, colour, do lots of things with. So this is one of those papers that has some really great versatility to it. Okay, so let's go on to the first project. Let me grab out which one. We'll do this one first. So here is the first one. Okay, a very, very simple design. We will be using one of the, let me just find this paper. So I do have in this one, this image here that I've done with my sample card. You could have any of these in your kit. So let's make a start on this, and I'll go through what you've got. You will of course have an envelope. I have got a half sheet of the thick white A4. I have got a piece of basic black that measures 10 centimetres by 14.4 and a piece of white that measures 9.5 by 13.9. So these two are for the inside of my card. So I do have that little bit of matting on the inside. So that is the inside. I have got a second piece of black, and this one measures 9.5 by 13.9, and a piece of white that measures 9 centimeters by 13.4. A little bit smaller, as you can see. My mat around the outside here is a little bigger than what I would normally use. There is a die cut circle, and this one is cut from, I'll just hold it up so you can see it, or maybe under the black. This is from the Stylish Shapes, which is one of the die sets I use a lot. So it is kind of a must-have, and it has really nice stitch detail. I've got my vase. You may have something different. They're all going to work out just as beautifully. And 2 pieces of black baker's twine. The longer one is 25 centimeters long, and the shorter one is around 15. So that is the product that we're using for tonight's first project. Okay, so let's get started with this one. Grab a bone folder. So the other products that to complete this card that I'm using, I've got a blending brush, and I've also got Pool Party ink, and that is to do a little bit of ink blending on my circle here in the background. And I've also got my Memento black ink to stamp the sentiment. So for this one, the sentiment comes from Lovely Arrangements. I do love this stamp set, and I think the font in this with the images are really quite lovely. So they're well worth. Yeah, it's a good set to have. Okay, so I folded my card base in half. I'm going to start with my die cut circle, my blending brush, and a small blending brush will do the job as well. And as I mentioned, Pool Party ink. So I'm going to get some ink onto my brush. I'm going to get rid of some of that darkness, and this is just going to be a little bit in the background. I think I must have recently re-inked my Pool Party because it's quite wet. So as you can see, I hope it shows up okay on my phone. There's a little bit of blending that might show up a little better in the background. Okay, pop that one aside. And that's all I'm using Pool Party for. The other product, which I should have mentioned just before, for my colouring, I'm going to be using some very, very well-loved watercolour pencils. So these are the Stampin' Up! Ones. Some of them get used a lot, so they are quite small. There are 2 assortments you can get, and I've got both in the one container, and this is just one of the old stamp cases that I've got it in, along, of course, with a sharpener. And to blend my colour, I will be using a blender pen. So let me get out a couple of colours. And what is that one? I'm going to use an old colour, which is Bermuda Bay. I'm going to use that for the water because it has sort of a little bit of a green tone. So you might remember Bermuda Bay. It's kind of a darker shade than Pool Party. But because it's still in my case from when it was a current colour a number of years ago, I've kind of just left it there. Okay, so let's get started. To do my water, as I mentioned, Bermuda Bay is like just a darker shade of Pool Party. I want to add a little bit of the Bermuda Bay in. So just a little bit and down the side. And I'm also going to be using Balmy Blue. So these 2 colours will mix quite nicely together. For those who've never used a blender pen before, this acts as a watercolour brush without actually having the pot of water on the table, or we also have our aqua painters as well, or water painters. These just have in the barrel tap water, and they act as a watercolour brush, so the tip does get wet. When you turn it upside down, give it a bit of a squeeze, water comes out, and you can use that as well to do your watercolouring. I don't tend to use the water brush much. My go-to is the blender pen. So one thing to remember before you use these, on your scratch paper underneath you, just make sure that the fluid coming out of the tip is nice and clean. And then I am just going to blend out my colour a little bit. And I am going to be leaving some white space. So that's only a small amount of colour that I put on the blender pen to blend the two colours together. After each colour, just make sure you give that tip a little bit of a wipe off. And I'm just going to grab some paper towel because I have got some drops of water, and I'll end up putting, because I know what I'm like, something that I've just coloured or stamped in the water. Okay, a few more colours that I need to add. For my leaves, I'm going to be using two colours. So I've got granny apple green and also garden green. Okay, as I mentioned, my pencils get really well used. But again, I am going to be blending the two colours. So you can put as much pressure or as little pressure on the pencils as you like. It's all about the blending. And I'm going to add in some of the darker green as well. And this just gives your colour a little bit more movement without doing, I guess, too much work. Okay, again, making sure that your blender pen tip is nice and clean. And I'm going to go over the lighter colour first and then blending in the slightly darker colour. And it just kind of adds high and low lights in on your colouring. I do enjoy colouring. I'm not particularly good at it, but generally I'm really happy with, when I use the watercolour pencils, how my colouring turns out. So cleaning off that tip again, and then I've got my flowers to do. Again, using two colours. I'm using Daffodil Delight and Pumpkin Pie. So I'm going to get pretty much my whole flower. I'm going to colour in fairly roughly with the yellow. Being the lighter colour, I do want to get some of that colour in there nicely. And then at random spots, adding some of the orange. Okay, let me just show you. So it's a little bit blotchy with that colouring. Again, the blender pen smooths it all out. So I will be focusing a little bit more on the yellow and then going back in and just blending out some of that orange just a little bit. As mentioned, again, it just gives the colour a little bit more to look at. And I've realised I've forgotten some leaves. So I'm going to add a little bit of colour to those. And these other little bits. I'm not sure what these are meant to be or what colour they're supposed to be, but I found that I just do those the same colour as the leaves. Okay. There we go. So I can see there's a few people watching, so hello and thank you so much for joining me. If you've left any comments so far, I do apologise. I haven't seen any pop up, so please know that I'm not ignoring you at all. Okay, my next bit that I'm doing with my now coloured vase, you may like to take a little bit of extra time to colour yours, and of course you will be able to catch up on the replay if you happen to fall behind. So grab a pair of scissors and do your bit of fussy cutting. Now, a little while ago, I did have, I think it was Sharon was asking about where to get some good scissors from. These little paper snip scissors that I've been using, I've had these for years. They are Stampin' Up scissors, or they are a pair of Stampin' Up scissors. and then they went, I think they changed suppliers. So I'm really happy to share that in July, these little scissors, or ones that look almost identical, are going to be available to order again. So one thing I love about these little scissors, pairs of scissors, they are super sharp. They can be resharpened, which I've done, had all of mine resharpened over the years, because I just hold on to all of my product as much as I can. And once you get them resharpened, they're as, honestly, they are as good as new. So these little sharp scissors that are perfect for fussy cutting are coming back, which I'm really happy about, because I'm always like to have at least one new pair of these in the cupboard. I've got multiple pairs. I wait until they're all really quite blunt, and then I take them all in at one hit and get my scissors all sharpened. Okay, almost done. So your vase you've got in your kit might be a little bit more tricky to cut out. So I do apologise for that. But fussy cutting is something I've always enjoyed. So for me, this is always a fun thing to do. Okay, next I need to do, let me just pop that one out the way. Sample card there. I think, yeah, there you go, you can see that. I do need to stamp my sentiment on the piece of white, and this one measures 9 centimetres by 13.4. So it's the smaller of the two pieces of white. And I'm going to do this a hello friend. There it is there. Okay. And this is going to be stamped in black ink. That will go onto the block. Just so I can get my positioning, I am going to be sitting my circle where I want that to sit. And as you can see, then the vase just goes over the top. So I'm using black ink. You could use, as I know I've used in the background, you could use Pool Party, you could use a green, you could use orange, totally your choice with what colour ink you'd like to use. I've just gone with black because it does work in quite nicely with everything else that I've got going in black. Okay, nice, simple stamp. Okay, let me get the lid onto this so that I don't move some of these other things off to the side, just so I don't get ink on everything else. Okay, next step. My short piece of baker's twine. I'm going to be sitting a little high in the middle, and I'm going to tuck it around behind this piece of white and stick it in place with some sticky tape. And of course you can use some double-sided tape as well if you prefer. Okay, so just tucking that behind. Sticky tape is nice and quick, no mess, very, very easy. And get the other side in place as well. Okay, I have used a few different layers of dimensionals with this card. So the first layer I'm going to put is under the die cut circle. And I do have some minis here, which I tend to use mostly. And getting some of these onto the circle and then onto the card front. So I think I've used about 5 or 6 pieces. You can put more on if you like. And using, of course, the take your pick tool to stab into the little backing papers, and they flick up really nicely. Okay, and then this is going to be centered around about there. And the second piece, I'm putting some dimensionals on behind my vase. Again, I'm using some minis, and I will probably use an extra couple just to make sure that this sits really nicely. Okay, couple more. I think that will do. So I've got a pretty good coverage there. Again, using the take your pick tool, the piecing tool end, stabbing into the back of the dimensional papers to flick those up nice and quick. Again, if you've commented, I do apologise. I can't see any comments at the moment. So I promise I will check in and respond to any comments once I'm done. Okay, my second piece of the black baker's twine. This piece measures 25 centimetres. I am going to slide this. I'm actually going to slide it under this side here. I haven't quite got my circle centered, so I think there's a little less space there. So I'm going to put this on the other side. So this is a bow that I'm just doing a shoelace tie. Oh, very quick and easy. And of course I am going to trim up the little tail there. Okay, almost finished this card. The colouring and cutting out does take a few moments, but it's actually not too bad. Okay, so I will now be sticking these two pieces together, and I'll be using some Stampin' Seal. Okay, so Stampin' Seal. For those who may have this adhesive or maybe would like to try it, is worth a try. Just remember a light hand and that little tick just to break the stream of the adhesive. Okay, so this is going on the front, and then again I'm going to be using Stampin' Seal to stick this piece onto the card front, which has got that slightly bigger mat than what I would normally use. Okay, so again some Stampin' Seal, that little tick, a light hand. Now normally one of these layers that I've just done, either in the piece of white or the black, normally I would put dimensionals under those as well, but I think when you start using 3 and 4 different layers of dimensionals, the card gets kind of fat, so you don't want to bulge out the envelope too much. And to finish the inside, some Stampin' Seal. We've got the white, this measures 9.5 by 13.9, goes onto the black, which measures 10 centimetres by 14.4. So those are fairly stock standard measurements that I use for most of my mats on my cards. And again, a little bit more Stampin' Seal. And into the middle of the card. So that is card number 1 done. So not a difficult card to do, a little bit of colouring in, and these papers really are fun to colour, and a little bit of ink blending just to add a touch of colour in the background. So card number 1. So for those who've got kits with them, please don't worry if you haven't kept up with me, because I do craft through or get through these cards fairly quickly. You'll of course be able to catch up on replay, which I will share that straight away. And again, if anyone's left a comment, I'm sorry, I'm not seeing any, so I will check the comments in afterwards and respond to all of them. Okay, card number 2. This one's got a bit more colouring, and I was going to do some ahead of time, but I also wanted to kind of do this in real time, being a class, so I hope you'll bear with me. Same products as what I've used on the first card. So I've got my half sheet of thick white A4 for the base, which I have pre-scored. For the inside of my card, I've got a piece of white that measures 9.5 by 13.9 and a piece of black that measures 10 by 14.4. Again, my standard size that I do for mats on cards and in cards. I have got a smaller piece of black, And this one measures 12.5 by 9.5 centimetres, and my piece of designer series paper that measures 12 by 9. So there's a little bit of a gap there. With this card, I've done mine off centre, but there is no reason why you can't do yours straight if that's what you would like to do. Okay, so of course, starting by folding my card in half, then I think I'm going to get straight into doing the colouring because it's going to take me a few minutes to get that done. So it's one of these Facebook Lives that if you enjoy colouring, and even if you're watching someone else doing it, it can be quite relaxing. Okay, so let me grab out the pencils that I need. So I'm going to be using Old Olive for the leaves. I've got Melon Mumbo for the flowers. I'm actually going to be using Melon Mumbo ink for this sentiment. I'm going to add into this as well some Gorgeous Grape, and I think I've also put some fresh freesia in there as well, possibly some Calypso Coral. So we might end up using all of those because I kind of lose track sometimes of the exact colours that I've used. So I've just got some pinks, got purple, got a green. We're good to go. So for the larger flowers, I have used not Flirty Flamingo, I'm using Melon Mumbo, which is the same colour as the ink that I've done on the sentiment. So starting with these ones, with the bigger flowers. My colouring is nowhere close to being really good. It's just very rough getting some colour onto my paper. We might do this one as well. So you can pick and choose what flowers you're doing. You can do each flower a different colour if you want to. Oh, I think I've just done two flowers the same colour. That's okay. We'll live with that. Okay, so there's some done in pink, and I'm going to do some of my flowers purple, but I'm going to do different ones to on the sample card. I think that should have been purple there. That's okay. So it's very much wherever you want your colour to land. It is going to work really nicely. And add in some Calypso Coral. The reason I'm putting some Calypso Coral in is it has, as a coral colour, it does have that little bit of the sort of orange pink sort of colour. It just adds a nice little bit of variety to the colours on this. And I'm using also some fresh freesia, which is a really sort of light purpley sort of colour. And I think the rest will just be the leaves that are in the green. Okay, oh, there's another one there. I find with this paper that I end up going back as I'm colouring and blending. I do go back in when I find something that I've missed. Okay, so quickly doing the leaves. I'll show you, before I start blending this, I will pick this up and show you a little bit more of a close-up, because I just want to share with you that you don't need to get everything coloured in perfectly with watercolour pencils. If you're using Stampin' Blends markers, this colouring is going to take you a bit longer, because this is going to work with any colour medium that you would like to use. I think that's a part of the flower. Maybe, maybe not. Okay, so let me hold this up and share it with you. So as you can see, it's a little bit scribbly. It's just getting the colour down a little bit, and that is perfectly fine when you're using your watercolour pencils for it to look that way. Okay, this is when we smooth our colour out. Again, the blender pen. And I've actually missed, let me grab this one. I've missed a little bit of a flower there. Oh, and a little bit there too. So with the blender pen, making sure that the tip is clean, I'm just going to go in and blend all of this out and kind of just a circular motion. I found that and I'm using the actual blender pen a little bit more on the side rather than the tip straight down, because I'm covering quite a large area. This is the quickest way to blend over and move that pencil around and that colour. So if you want to add more detail to your colouring, once this is dry, you can actually go over it again and make some of the colours a little bit more vibrant. For me, I'm just going to get this coloured so that I can share how to put together the card. Okay, so a few more flowers in the pink. I'm going to hold this up just before I go on to the next bit, just to show you how quick and easy and how smooth the colour turns out. And if it looks like you've missed any bit, just go back over it. So then you can see that the colour is much smoother, and I've been able to move the colour around a little bit. Okay, again, cleaning off that tip. And I've got, I think, only 1 or 2 flowers in the fresh freesia, maybe just 1. Remember, just giving that a quick clean. And into the purple. This is purple and pink sort of flower because I did the wrong colour on it. But this is nice and quick. If I was to do this and not having this actually being on a Facebook Live, I would probably do the colouring with the Stampin' Blends, which are the alcohol markers, because you can really do some amazing stuff with that and getting a lot more detail and light and shade sort of colouring with the blends. You can achieve that with the watercolour pencils. It just takes a little bit of time. And of course, cleaning off between each. And finally, I've just got my leaves. So for those who have sat and watched me colour and chat about very random things, I do appreciate you. Okay. Not sure if I've got anyone watching, but I hope I do. So if you're watching, thank you so much. And again, I'm so sorry. I'm not ignoring you. If you've left me a comment, I just can't see any. I had trouble with Facebook Lives a while ago, and I thought that was all resolved, but perhaps it's not. But that's okay. I'll go back and have a look at this in a little bit. All right, almost done with my leaves. I think I'm done. Okay. That actually didn't take me as long as what I was expecting, so that's really good. All right, cap back on. One thing I didn't mention earlier, if you're using the black blender pens, don't store them up. Make sure they're horizontal, so in the drawer on the shelf when you're storing those. It just then saves one end from drying out because the solution in it will kind of go to the one end. Okay, so next bit. I've got my colouring done. Looks a bit different colour-wise to my first one, but that's okay. I could have used a different colour combination on the first one too. I have been known to do that. So I've got a circle that I've die cut from Stylish Shapes, which is the same set that I used for the first card. And I'm going to put, the sentiment on this one is, I'm going to do maybe just a note. Does that fit on there? I'm going to keep it nice and simple. No, I think I'll do Love You. I think this one will be all right. I think it's more I'm nervous about stamping, so I've got one stamp that I need to actually stamp twice. Okay, so I've got my block. And I will oh, let me just grab one of these. I'm going to be using, I've just got a baby wipe that I'm going to be using to clean the ink off to stamp, because I need to ink this stamp twice so that I get this sort of look for it. So let me see how I go. I'm actually feeling a bit nervous about this. Okay, so I'm going to just use the stamp on the edge of the ink pad just to pick up. Let me stamp it here to show you love. Okay, so it is with photopolymer, it is nice and easy to actually do this and line it up, because you can see where the ink is on the stamp. So you can see that the love is a little bit darker. So I've got stamp love. There we go. And I'm going to give this a little bit of a clean, and I'm also going to just dab this on the paper towel to make sure it's dry. There we go. Because if I haven't got all the ink off the first part of the stamp, the love, it'll transfer. And again, lining up just, oh, I haven't done that very well. Got some of the E on there. Try it this way. There we go. And on my little practice run here, I'm going to be able to put the U underneath it. That's worked nicely. Let's see if I can do that on the actual bit for the card. We've got love, U. I'm pretty happy with that. I think that's worked really nicely. Okay. So now we just need to put this one together. All right, so I have got my piece that I've coloured, and I need the shorter piece of the baker's twine, and this is about 17 centimetres. So this is going maybe just a little bit lower than the middle. And again, I'm going to use some sticky tape to hold this in place. And there we go. The other side. And again, another piece of tape. Okay. You'll notice that the circle that I've used here, I've used a die cut. I think I must have used a punch on the original card, but when I was preparing the kits, I actually left my punch at home. So we're using a slightly bigger circle. Okay, dimensionals. Again, I am using the minis, and get a few on around the outside, and of course one in the middle too. And one more. And I got to tell you, I think I've told everyone this lots of times during my videos, how much I love the Take Your Pick tool, particularly for getting the little paper backings off the dimensionals. Okay, so have the I love you there. And with the second piece of baker's twine, this one is about 25 centimetres. I'm going to tie a shoelace bow. And when you thread it underneath your first piece of baker's twine, you're able to move this to where you want it to sit. Alternatively, of course, you can tie bow and then stick it on with a glue dot. Okay, so I've just trimmed that up a little bit. Let's get this card together. So let's complete the inside first. So using some Stampin' Seal, and of course use Tombow or whatever adhesive you normally have on your table. Go ahead and use that. So for the inside, I'm matting the piece of white onto the black, and then this will go into the card base, which finishes off the inside. You can, of course, use some of the edge pieces of the designer series paper. Let me show you what I mean. Where is this piece? So if you wanted to, you can see that there are partial flowers. You could colour that in, cut it out, and then stick that on the inside just to finish the inside off. And then also these little bits that you might not be using, you get to use those as well. Okay, so stamp and seal for the black. As I mentioned, you can put this on straight, which is going to look around about like that, or as I've done, a little bit off center. Just adds a little bit more of detail to it. So the first one, as I mentioned, I'm doing mine a little bit off center. There we go, there's the first one, and dimensionals. And then this card is finished. So this designer series paper, you're going to get lots and lots of cards out of this. I think it'd be really lovely for scrapbooking as well. But I think I love this one because there's so many opportunities to colour in and use the same paper over and over again. Different colours, slightly different card design, and you're going to be happy with it every time. Okay, so as mentioned, stabbing into the back of the dimensionals to get little papers off. And then this one goes onto the card front, and there we go. The 2 cards for this month's free class using, I can never remember the name of this paper, Artisan Sketched Garden designer series paper. I think it's a little bit more of a mouthful for a name than what we would normally have, but it's amazing paper. It's a lot of fun to use, and it's very, very versatile. So thank you so much for those who have joined me tonight. I apologize if anyone has left me a comment. I haven't seen it, but I will respond to those. I will be announcing for anyone who leaves a comment for me on this video in a week or so. I'll announce at random or draw at random winners. So there'll be 2 prizes to give that week. So you may end up with one of these nice cards coming your way. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed seeing these 2 projects being made, and I will see you next week.